All right, welcome back to Walk and Talk with Lamont Carey. Uh, Today we're going to talk about hard loving him. And I think that is probably one of the best topics that I think most of us be trying to figure out. I watched this video. Actually, this is the second time, and I don't watch anything twice, right? I don't like to see movies twice. I don't like to see, well, no, I watch certain TV shows twice when I can watch TV. But I watched this interview between Nikki, Giovanni and James Baldwin. And she said something that drove me like to wanting to do this show. Ski Wee said, "Good morning to everyone." Good morning, Ski Wee. And if you haven't seen this video, I asked you to check it out. It's 2 hours long. And it kind of fit into something that I'm doing now. So I'm currently creating this model, right, that focuses on trauma and intervention points and trauma throughout a male's life. Mainly the focus on African American males, but I'm putting males in general in it. And so I'm targeting these entry points where we can engage these young men that has experienced trauma, and so that the trauma won't redirect their path. Because if trauma is never addressed, people become more traumatized. It messes with their ability to think. It limits their view on the world. Is a cause for drug addiction, depression, anxiety, criminal behavior, violence. And so, thinking like a person of a village now, that I want to be able to see how we can engage individuals, and so that they won't spiral out of control. And we experience trauma in so many different ways in our environment. Domestic violence, what goes on in our house, what goes on in our community, what goes on in our schools. So there's so many ways that we encounter violence and racism, and it distorts our perception on life. And so this video between Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin was outstanding. And one of the things that she said was, Liz said, "Good morning. It keeps knocking me out." I'm sorry, Liz. And one of the things that James Baldwin was trying to explain, how like black men are so. You know what? We're gonna talk about that one next time. Today we're gonna stay on topic. We're gonna talk about hard loving him. So, ladies and gentlemen, is it really hard to love a dude? Like, what are some of the most complicating barriers that you find that is easy? That is hard for you to overcome. So, I've been told, right, that it is challenging at times loving me, right? Well, not loving me, but understanding me, and that because I'm really lovable, right? That because I'm not as open. I've even been accused of being more open with the general public that I engage with than I actually am sometimes with my partner. And so I'm constantly trying to work on being more inclusive, right? To allow in those deeper parts of my thinking and of my emotions. So I was just, so since thinking about that, I was wondering, is it hard? Do you all find it hard to love him? And if so, can we give me an example and we can talk about it? because I think my issues are so small, so I may not be able to connect directly to what you're talking about with him, but we're gonna give it a shot because I've had the unfortunate privilege of being around a minimum of 11,000 men in my lifetime, and this has been in prison. Define love. So that's broad, right? Defining love is, I don't think I can define what love is for you, because because each one of us have different needs and wants, and we've had different experiences. So what feels like love to me may feel like neglect to you. And so for me, my definition of love is like, first I have to be able to recognize that you're trying to give me love, right? So I have to understand your love language in order to recognize that's what you're doing. That's what you're trying to give me. But you also have to understand what love feels like with me. So I have read this book called 5 Love Languages. And what it taught me about myself is that how I want to receive love is how I give it. And the way that I give it may not be what Haram, may not be what my partner wants. So what's loving to me is support, right? Showing support. But what was loving to somebody else may be touch, right? And I haven't always been like this touchy person, right? And then I'm sure I can say it came from this and it came, so I usually say it come from street life, it come from prison life, because you're not used to being touched and so forth. But it may come from, maybe I didn't get enough hugs as a kid, right? So hugging me may make me feel uncomfortable, or holding my hand may make me feel uncomfortable. Because I remember when I was in the street life that I was always worried about people that want to harm me trying to get to people that they know I love and harm them. Because I don't know, back in the day, if they couldn't get to you, they'll get to somebody that you love and hurt them to draw you out to the hospital or draw you out to the funeral homes or stuff like that, as a way to get you. And so when I had, Liz said spot on. And so when I had a girlfriend when I was in the street life, I never let on that this was my girlfriend in a way of protecting her. And so stuff that I would do, and you might even find this in the guys that you may be dealing with. So me and her out, say we're in the mall, and I see somebody and we start talking. I never introduce her, right? And I carried that same behavior over into my current relationships, right? And so what I realized that, well, what she did, well, let me give you what she felt. So she used to feel like I was being dismissive of her, right? Because she wasn't important enough in my life for me to introduce her to somebody that I clearly like, because we're laughing, we're joking, how you been? What's going on with so-and-so? I ain't seen so-and-so in a while. But that's just, for me, that's just casual conversation. I remember you from the past. I ain't gonna greet you like we not cool if we cool, right? But that doesn't mean that we're friends. It doesn't even mean that we're associates. You're just somebody from my past. But what I didn't realize, that what it was doing to her was making her feel like she wasn't important. And what I had to realize is that I carried over that behavior from my previous life into this new life. And so once I explained to her that that was a form of protection of her in my past, because if the person that I'm talking to, we could be smiling and joking but hate each other guts, right? And they may have intent on doing harm to me, and be like, boom, see her in the street and harm her just to draw me out. And so that was some residue from that former life that I carried over. And so I don't know if any of you experiencing that with the gentlemen or females that you're dealing with, because a lot of us have different kind of paths. And in another situation, that same situation could be just somebody that she just is not important enough for her to even know. So, but I didn't, because I'm not realizing that I'm still carrying over stuff from that past, that she may have felt he doesn't really love me. He's not really committed to this relationship, or he doesn't respect me because he didn't introduce me to this female or to this guy that he's clearly having a conversation with. And that may make her question whether she should be loving me, whether I'm committed to this relationship. And so, again, the book that I had read, it taught me that there are these 5 different ways on loving somebody. And what I learned through that experience, that the way that I tend to love, or I was loving people, wasn't always the way that they needed to be loved. So they was recognizing that I was doing these things that I was doing to show that I love them, but it wasn't what makes them feel loved inside. So if you finding it hard to love him, Liz said name a book. The book I read was The 5 Love Languages. It was the military version, and I read the military version because I come from prison and I come from that street life, and so what I discovered is that military individuals with that PTSD and guys from the streets, and people from communities of violence, tend to suffer from that stuff as well. And so I read this book, the military version, because it applied, right? I'm coming home from prison. It's like an individual coming home from Iraq or something. And it teaches you how to still communicate and show love even when you're far apart from each other. Lady Di said, good morning, kind sir. Good morning, lady. Liz said, okay. Liz said, I didn't know they had a military version. That was the only version that I came across, and then I found out that it was a regular version. Lady Di said, smart. Right. So I think when we talk about is it hard to love him, I think we have to look at what it is that we want out of relationship. What does love look like to you? And what does love look like to him? And I think the only way that we can have that conversation, a real truthful and honest conversation, is that we got to look at like what we really want. Lady Di say, is book for male and females? Yes, it's universal, Lady Di. It teaches you the different love languages of, from an individual that you could be in a relationship with. And so one of the languages was affirmation. One of them was touch. One of them was active service. One of them was, why is my brain going blank? Touch, active service. I should have pulled it up. I didn't know I was going to be talking about it. But anyway, love language, military style. If you're dealing with somebody from the streets, or somebody that been in the military, somebody that been in prison, somebody that may be suffering from PTSD or what have you, it gives some tips on how to comfort them and show them love. And I'm telling you, it was an amazing book. Bay said, love seen from the eyes only see the illusions that eventually passes by. But love seen from the vision sees the patience to endure. So the consciousness now paves the way. Okay, poet. I hear you, poet. So let me re-look at that. Love seen from the eyes only sees the illusions that eventually passes by. So that's like, so you're saying, babe, you're saying like, with that line, that it's more about the attraction, right? I see a female, I'll be like, damn, she's bad. I need to know her. And then you're saying that illusion eventually fades, right? But love seen from the vision sees the patient endurance. So the conscious now paves the way. So now once we get past, you saying once we get past the love, the lust part, we now we can see the person for who they are. Bay said as a through God. Okay. So what about this? I know sometimes with females they have this list, right? That they want from a man. And it just amazes me like how some of y'all lists are the same, but y'all are individuals. So I don't know if your definition of what love is or what a good man is being passed on to you from the women in your circle. 6 foot tall, own place, own car, this, like a whole lot of material things. Or you'll say things like, he has to be loving, he has to be caring, he has to be quality time. That's right, Lady Di. Quality time is another one of them. And so I think when you're in a relationship with somebody, with a man, and you saying that it's hard to love him, right? Receiving gifts. That's the other two. Thank you, Lady Di. Liz said, I don't follow a list. You don't follow a list? So can you tell me what you look for, Liz? Because I know when I'm hearing on talk shows or hearing women talking about what they want out of what they're looking for in a man, I'm telling you that list be seeming so identical to other lists. And I think if we don't really look at what we need from a relationship, and we tell men or women that this is what we want out of the relationship, and they give us that, and we realizing that that's not what we want because we haven't really looked to see what makes us happy. And so it's hard to love him when he isn't clear on how to love you. And when you're not clear on how to love him. Because unless we have a real conversation, and that conversation can be extremely hard when you have been living most of your life not even knowing exactly what it is that makes you happy or what it is that you're looking for in a partner. So it's going to be hard to love him when you don't know how he wants to be loved. And it's going to be hard for him to love you when you aren't sure exactly what it is to love you. And then we walk away. We walk away and we see, because when relationships end, I know at least for me, when relationships end, I go through this process of evaluating what I did wrong in the relationship, right? Where I wasn't clear on what I felt or what I needed, and a lot of times I wasn't clear. And so I try to re-examine myself so I can help me evolve into being a better partner, because I want to be in a loving relationship. I want to be able to make her happy in the way that she wants to be happy, and not in the way that I just want to make her happy, because I know it has to be a give and take, and that we both have to be reaching for the same goal and to have individual lives. I'm not one of those guys that we should be together all the time, because I think we need our individual experiences, and then we can come together and bring those experiences so the conversations can be amazing. But I've also had relationships where the conversation are amazing, and we can always be together because we always got something to talk about. So Liz said, I have learned from my first failed marriage to pay attention to what I need. Yes, honesty for one. So, and Liz also said, hi Rita Davis. So let me ask you this. Some of us be having so many walls up, right? And that it takes time for those walls to slowly be torn down. Rita said, good morning, fam. Good morning, Rita. It takes time for some of us to bring down these walls, especially when we have experienced trauma. And I don't think any of us have escaped any trauma, but I think it's the levels of trauma that some of us may have experienced. So, Skiwee said, the hard part for me was getting to know him as a man versus the wild teenager that I saw growing up. Being incarcerated for several years, I can see the difference by our conversation that we have now, right? So the Skiwee, the thing about prison either do one or two things to you. Prison even make you either reflect on your life and the mistakes that you made and the improvements that you need to make moving forward, or it makes you harden. But it also can combine the two. So if you've been an individual that had been in prison and you lost your relationship while in prison, right? You either gonna dig deep into yourself and figure out, like, example, I'm gonna use me. I don't know why I keep using me, but when I went to prison, I was in a relationship with this woman, young girl, because we was young, 16 and 17, and I was in prison, and one day, and I remember writing her a letter, and I was asking her, like, what was her favorite color? What was her dream? Right? But we had been together for a while. But that stuff wasn't even important to me. And it seemed, when I'm rereading my letter, it seemed that I was dismissive of her. But in my truth, those things wasn't important to me at that time because we were together. And so, but what I learned from that experience is to try to get to know the woman that I'm with. And that way, if I know her dreams and I know her favorite color, then I know if I'm going to buy her something that is going to have her favorite color in it. And if it's her dream, if I know her dreams, then I can be able to help support her in those dreams. Liz said, if they are honest with their self and self-reflect, many are in denial and make excuses and hold on to age they went in. So Liz, let me tell you something about holding on to the age that you was when you went in. We don't recognize that, Liz. We do not recognize that we're stuck, right? So, I'm in therapy, right? I actually go to a therapist to try to work through some stuff, right? Not no severe stuff, but to make sure I'm becoming more emotional. That I'm evolving as a man, right? So I can, reconnect. Because in the prison life and in the street life, we disconnect from our emotions. And even in the home life, sometimes we're told men don't cry, be a big boy. So we start suppressing our emotions, right? And so our emotions disconnect from what we actually feel. We deny what we feel. So I've been working on making sure all of my emotions are connected to exactly what I feel. But what I've learned in the therapy is that my last relationship that ended that I was actually experiencing breakup for really the first time, like a real adult relationship. And the therapist was saying usually a young man or a young woman have their first real breakup between the ages of 18 to 24. So technically, when it comes to relationships and understanding like loss, right? That I was in that age group, even though I am functioning as a man now, but because of my incarceration, it delayed me with the social, emotional skills that a man or a woman would be expected to be at their age, because I wasn't having those kind of experiences. So it's not always the case that he's denying it. He may not just recognize, Liz, that he's stuck. Rita said, well, I was in an abuse marriage. I don't want no more parts, especially when your husband got you in the middle floor with a gun to his wife's head. Rita, I am so sorry that you experienced that, and you definitely wasn't deserving of that. But one thing that I would caution you on, Rita, is not to close yourself off to love. Not to deny yourself the opportunity of being, if marriage was something that you wanted, then I'm saying don't deny yourself for that because of a bad experience, because all of us dudes ain't the same, right? And there is a dude that's out here that's gonna love you exactly the way that you want to be loved. And even in y'all arguments and disputes, you might become mad at each other, but he could never gonna put you in that same position. And the other thing that I would caution you on is when you meet a guy that you're thinking about being in a possible relationship with, if you tell him that you're not interested in ever being married again, then that's what we hold, right? That's what we'll become comfortable with. And so, Reed, if me and you in this relationship and your feelings change towards that, but my thinking is that you never want to get married, and then you're looking at me like, well, damn, we done been together 4 years. Why he ain't proposed to me yet? Or your friends saying, why he ain't proposed to you yet? Or your family saying, why he ain't proposed to you yet? And then you like, damn, why he ain't proposed to me yet? But I'm remembering what you said when we first got together, that you didn't want to get married, right? And so I'm holding firm to that. So I'm not telling you that you have to get married, because you don't have to get married. I'm just saying, if marriage was ever part of your dream, and that is the epitome of a great relationship for you, if that's what it is, then don't cut yourself off from that, because even though you had this horrendous experience with this last joker, love, you deserve every piece of love that your heart desire. And all of us men aren't like him. We're not all like him. Bay said, if love is based off of understanding, then doesn't the love become conditional? And if so, then what is the precepts of unconditional love? So love is always evolving, right? In my opinion, love is always evolving. But for me and you to come together, I think first that I have to respect and see you exactly as you are right now. I can't say look at your potential, because you may never live up to your potential. So I got to be loving you based off of where you are right now. And as we both evolve, the conditions of our relationship, or what makes, not even the conditions, I'm talking more about what makes us happy, evolves, right? Today I don't like I ate hummus for the first time, right? I don't do peas, nothing, right? But I ate hummus for the first time and loved it. So all of my life, no beans. And then I finally have beans. So I evolved, right? So now what I didn't like, I found out that I love it, right? And so I think we just have to be clear on what it is that we want, and and also have an understanding that things can and possibly will change. Liz said the feeling like they are entitled to go back to that age and forget the consequences of the choices that went in. How to leave jail and those mistakes and move forward into a new journey at the current age is the biggest issue. So Liz, I'm actually writing this book now on institutional behavior and how to go about breaking it, because I suffered from a lot of it, right? In my room, I had all of my belongings near the bed, right? And my woman used to be like, man, why your stuff isn't spread it out? Why you got it all? But that's what I was conditioned to, right? I remember one time I got in the shower with my slippers on. That's what I was conditioned to. So the thing that you got to understand, Liz, is that we have been living in this subculture, this sub-society where we had to be on alert. We had to, it's just a totally different world than the world that you are experiencing, Liz. And we adjust to those worlds. Just like when you went to a new school or you got a new job, you learned the culture and you started responding to the culture. That is the same thing that happens to us in prison, but just prison is more extreme on all ends. And so it's hard for us to come home and just be done with that like y'all want us to, because at first prison was outside of you, right? You might be going to visit somebody in prison, and so your perception of prison is totally different. But if you became a prisoner, after a while, in 1 month in prison, you begin to learn what's to be expected every day, right? You'll get to feel the changes in the air. And so I don't think it's realistic, but you wouldn't know that it's not realistic to think that when an individual comes home, that they could just move away from all of that. That is not going to happen. But the thing that I will ask you to consider is to help them to remember prison. If you want them to remember about the consequences of those things that they were into, that you want to keep them away from, then you want them to remember being locked in that cell and not being able to come out of that cell. You want them to remember the coldest times in the winter, the heat ain't working. You want them to remember when they passing out mail that their name isn't called for mail. So you don't want them to completely forget, because sometimes when an individual completely forget the horrors that they have experienced, then they start making the mistakes that created those experiences. So in my opinion, I don't think you want them to walk completely away from that. Rita said, well, my husband wasn't worrying his wife. He was too busy pleasing other women. Now he's locked up for life. Hell with him. I forgive him, but never go back to him. Yeah, Rita, I'm sorry that you had all of those horrible experiences, but you know you deserve better, and I trust that you will find better. If that's what you're interested in, just be open to it. Don't be closed off. And I'm not saying don't be cautious, because I know we got to evaluate like what we like in men and women and what we attract, and we gotta evaluate like our previous relationships and see what they have in common, and if those things that they have in common, do they become a turn off to us? Because you know how sometimes we save a person, right, and we don't even recognize that is what we do, that we look for wounded people to heal, and then once we heal them, then we want to be done with them, or once we have tried to heal them long enough, we become done with them. So I think always evaluate what you need in a relationship based off of what you didn't get in the previous relationship and what you feel you need now. Rita also said, no, I'll never marry again. Okay, Rita, I respect that. I'll respect that. I respect that. Liz said, I agree. As individuals are evolving. Right. Rita said, well, where are the good men out here at? Rita, they out here, Rita. There are a whole lot of good men out here. There are a whole lot of good men out here. You got to ask yourself, like, what is a good man to you? What does he feel like? Right? What are the characteristics that you need in a good man, right? And I know a lot of time we say we don't want to meet their representative. We want them to be straight up and open about who they are. But we have so many different personalities, all of us, right? The way you are with your family may not be the way you are at work or the way you are on a trip, right? And so I just think that when you meeting a person for the first time, have some questions that are beyond the basic stuff. Where were you born? How many siblings you got? Like, try to figure out what questions would mean the most to you and ask them. But if you're trying to find a good man, then you got to figure out where they are. But they're everywhere. They live next door to you. They live down the street from you. Because I hear a lot of times that, like, when women say, he ain't gonna never find a good woman like me. Let me tell y'all something. There are tons of good women. All of you are good women, right? You could take the worst woman. You could say this woman is the most terrible woman in the world. But you connect her with a man that inspires her to love him different, then she becomes different, right? Or if a man that loves her like the way that she needs to be loved, then she evolves into this different being. Y'all have seen them. Y'all say, oh, she's a tramp, she's a hoe, how she get him? Maybe he loving her right? But we're quick to say all of these other things, but I think anybody has the potential to be a good woman. And any man has the potential to be a good man. It's just about how we connect to each other. Because I know plenty of good women. I have been in relationships with plenty of good women. And one great woman, right? But our connection, I wasn't where I needed to be. She wasn't where we needed to be. We wasn't where we needed to be. And our communication or our response time was delayed. I think the most important thing in any relationship is patience. But not just patience of waiting for the individual to change. But I'm talking about patience where we're actively working together for a common goal. Because if you're just waiting for me to change, I may never change. And when you go in a relationship with me, you have to go in a relationship with me as the person that I am, with the expectations that I may not change. So, and women are always saying that y'all don't want to train a dude, y'all don't want. How are we supposed to know how to love you if you don't tell us? How are we supposed to know how to please you sexually, emotionally, all of that stuff if you don't tell us? You think we supposed to just come in and know your body, know your thoughts, know how it is to love you? That's crazy, because you all are different. But when we start comparing you to other women, then you'll say, no, I'm an individual. And so you got to approach that in a relationship with us as we're dealing with you as this whole unique new person, because we have never experienced you, and you're going to have to teach us how to love you. Because if you don't teach us on how to love you, it's going to take us a while to figure it out. So why not ask for what you want, right? When you call to do an order over the phone, right? You tell the people what you want. And so that's the same thing I think you have to bring into a relationship. And maybe this will change us from being hard to love to us being easy to love, because now we understand you. Because communication, and even in communication, you got to make sure you are communicating exactly what it is that you mean to be communicating. Rita said, Rita says, some men can't take the reality being out of prison. That's why some end up back in prison. Prison can be a shocker, right? And I can't speak for every prisoner, but one of the things that I think you have to take into consideration, it's hard out here for individuals coming home from prison. And that's why I champion so hard to get laws changed and to create programs to work with them to build up their confidence, build up their self-esteem, get them focused on accomplishing something. But the truth is, a felony conviction has them limited, right? In a lot of places, you can't even rent an apartment if you got certain felony convictions, or even misdemeanor. If you got a misdemeanor possession, drug possession or something, there are thousands of communities that you can't live in, right? There are employers that still have this on their application. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? So they still have policies that deny individuals the right to a job, regardless of how much they have changed, but based off of that conviction. And so I think you have to be open that dealing with the individual that's coming home from prison, there's going to be some challenges. And the main challenge is going to be his or her ability to readjust to society, because you got to realize that prison is its own world. Everything is like a world with a wall around it, with no outside stuff. So it has its own culture, right? It has its own habits. It has its own food. It has its own dangers. And the dangers in prisons are more heightened than it is in the community. And so there are things in the free world that makes it hard for an individual to change, right? Regardless of how much they want to, there are barriers that you and I can help remove. We need more jobs to hire convicted felons, right? We need more housing complexes to be able to for us to go live there. We need access to medical and social service. A lot of this stuff that we all that have never been in prison see as seamless is challenging for somebody who hasn't been a part of this world. And there are barriers up that said, no, we don't want you. And so individuals, once you begin to get, some individuals, once they get denied so many times, they fall back into who they used to be, because they see it as their only option to survive out here, to contribute to the household where they are with you. So just consider that. But I'm working on this book. I'm telling you, I'm working on this book, and I'll let y'all know when it's out. Rita also said, I know what a good man is. My father set an example of a good man for us girls. That's the best example. Skiwi said, you definitely speaking facts. What are you talking about, Skiwi? Rita said, well, I know I am a good woman. Some men don't know how to accept a good woman. Rita, you're going to have to break that down. What you mean some men don't know how to accept a good woman? Because I've heard stuff, and I ain't saying this is what you're saying, but I've heard women say men are scared of a successful woman. Men just don't know how to treat a good woman. And, so there's so many things that come with that. So I need you to break that down. Rita said, well, my time is value. Life is too short. So Rita, your time is definitely valuable. And life is short. But the things that you want in life, it takes time to get some time. When you want a new job, it doesn't just happen like that. You have to apply for that job. You have to interview for that job, right? You have to go to the probationary period of that job and then pass the probationary period, and now you into that job. And so relationships is a microwave, right? You can't put it in the microwave and set it for 3 minutes and bam, you got this amazing relationship. That ain't how relationships work, especially not a relationship with me, right? It takes time, and you may not get all of a man, or just as well, he may not get all of you immediately, but as you build, it comes out. Because the one thing I will tell you about time and life being short, as long as you live in time. And I know you want to take full advantage of your time because life is short and your time is valuable, but you're still going to be living it. And so if you want, in my opinion, if you want something that's long term in anything, something that's fulfilling, something that is lasting, then you gotta expect that it's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some effort, not just on your part, but also on his part. And I know when you come in, you giving all that you got. But I may not be like that, right? I may not be as sure about you as you are about me, but I may say that you're a good woman, and I want to see if I can make this work. But I'm not on microwave time. I'm not doing that. And so other men may be like that. And so if you want something, you got to understand that you're going to invest time in it. And if you're constantly worried about life being short, that you may be dead tomorrow, I can come in giving you the best of me, all of me right now, and you still be dead tomorrow. So I would just suggest, expect to put some time in. Because I'm not walking through the door saying, let's get married and we just met yesterday. I ain't doing that. So are you going to have to prove some stuff to me? Of course you are. I might not use the word prove, but I need to make sure that I'm making the right decision for me. And not just making a decision based off of time because life is short. That ain't how I work in relationships. I don't know how for other people, but that ain't how I operate. Skiwi said you have to teach each other. Exactly. You have to teach each other. You have to teach each other. You have to teach each other. You have to teach me how to treat you. You have to teach me how to support you. You have to teach me that you don't want me to solve every problem. Sometimes you want me to listen. You have to teach me even how to make you have an orgasm. You have to teach me this stuff, right? I mean, I can fumble around on all of this and may never get it right, but you just becoming more and more frustrated because I'm not getting it right, but you ain't gave me the tools. You haven't gave me the guidebook on how to make that stuff happen. Rita said, I understand. Liz said, it definitely is another world to live. Survive entirely different than the outside world. What I feel is issue also is the lack of listening when the loved one shares what it is like out here. Yeah, you gotta listen. And we gotta be comfortable. So we're dealing with men in prison, or men in general, right? It's what our perception of manhood is. And as somebody that been in prison, their perception of manhood may not exactly be the same as your definition of manhood. And so if a dude ever been to prison, he said he ain't had no trauma, he ain't had no bad experiences in there, that is crazy. We see somebody get stabbed. We see somebody lose their mind. It's just trauma following the routine and the disrespect that we receive from the gods, right? So all of that stuff impact us. And all of this stuff that we seeing in prison, we are not supposed to be emotional about it. We supposed to be unaffected by seeing somebody die stabbed to death right in front of us, or choked, or however they're killed. We supposed to move on like it nothing happened. I can sit there as somebody stabbing the guy. My responsibility is to walk away so I won't get pulled into it, or he don't see me watching and thinking that I'm going to snitch on him, right? So all of this stuff we got to bury down. We can't talk about, right? Because if you talk about it, they think you snitching, right? You can't be emotional about it because then they think you soft, and so we suppress all of this stuff. And so now we come out into this real world and our women want us to share our experiences in prison. But all we've learned is how to smother, right? So, loving somebody coming home from prison or been in the street life or somebody that experienced trauma, you're going to have to create a safe space. You're going to have to become a safe space in their mind. And through time, they'll start letting you into that world. But it's definitely a different world. Skiwi said, I think that is so wrong because everyone deserves a second chance. And most of them don't know what it is to live paycheck to paycheck. But they are more willing to go get the job to not only prove themselves but others as well that they can be done. So now what's starting to come out, employers are to admit that people who have been in prison have been some of their best employees. The turnover isn't fast, right? They're committed, they be on time, they work hard. Do you get some knuckleheads? Yes, you do get some knuckleheads, but more and more companies are starting to say how prisoners are some of their best employees. So you have big organizations like Target, who just came on board. You got like Coke Industries. You have, of course, you got the McDonald's. You got Microsoft and all of them that's starting to change their policies with to hire individuals. But so it's changing. But for this change to really be effective and to really happen sooner so that more people can have opportunities, is that you all gonna have to start demanding it with us, because a lot of individuals don't have a voice, right? In your state, check out and see if an individual would have been in prison have the right to vote. Because if I have the right to vote, then I have the right to vote for politicians that's going to help change some of this stuff that's keeping me from a job or having a place to live or from health insurance and all of this stuff, right? So it's going to take the community to get on board to help change the conditions that are out here to minimize my chances of staying free. But we need your help in order to make that happen. So there are groups in your community, or you got like the Urban League, ACLU, the Black Caucus. You have a lot of Republicans that are for criminal justice reform. So if you want to get involved in that, you can Google, right? Criminal justice reform organizations, and you'll see organizations starting to pop up, right? So if you want the person that you love, your family member, friend, or whatever that's coming home to have the best opportunity to stay free and become a good man that's not so complicated to love, the only way we become less complicated is once we understand each other and understand the barriers that keep us from being open, loved, and traumatized. And so as in a couple, it's going to take both of us to help us become one, if that makes sense. Liz said, in my area, they are doing more. Our career links, OVR, and community college has plenty to assist, and quite a few will hire now. The prisons also have more job training they are offering in those now. Right, so that's one of the most important things. If you want individuals to come home from prison with a real chance, prison programming. Prison programming is so critical. And I mean programming that changes the mindset, right? They traditionally have the NAAA programs and stuff in there, which are great for those that suffer and have those problems. But there are institutions where where they can't go to school to get a GED. At a minimum out here, you need a GED. Even like restaurants are requiring a minimum of a GED. So an individual that comes home from prison that doesn't have a GED gonna have a hard time transitioning to work. So programs in the prison, educational programs like GED, access to college, access, teaching business, personal